what would you say are the differences in selling to a DACH enterprise compared to other regions?
In the UK or US, you often have not that much questions about feature things, about data security, about legal, about compliance. So they actually kind of want this look and feel, like they need 1 or 2 demos with FAQs, and then they are open to make a decision, because they are also much more open to spend some K on this new tool or this new system or whatever. When we compare to DACH, it really depends on the seller. The people are way more scared to make a decision in the DACH region than in UK, US, Nordics and so on. What I like to do is to send my prospects cards from me, like with my knowledge of the account, maybe sending out a package to a prospect in my process to get a yes or no in Q4. And it worked actually, because they always appreciate your persistency in this case, because they see you really think like the extra mile and you're not calling 3 times a day, but trying to think of other possible ways.
What do people need to know about? Thank you so much for listening to the first ever English sales podcast for the German-speaking market. Before we continue, I want to make you a promise. I promise that with this show, I will do my utmost best to bring in the guests and share the stories that help you succeed in the DACH market. But I can only do so much. So, if you hit the subscribe button, I can get more guests, bigger stories, and better insights to help you succeed in your sales job. So, with no further ado, sit back, relax, and let the show begin. Jannis, is enterprise selling more difficult than SMB selling? Let me do that again, because I just told you I go for prospecting and now I use the word selling. So let me do that again. Jannis, is enterprise prospecting more difficult than SMB prospecting? So small, medium business prospecting.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. For me personally, it was actually a bit easier. It may surprise somebody listening, but where do I start? It's like you have, of course, you have limited amount of prospects, right? For me in these days, I had like 120 accounts, and we tried to get into companies over 10,000 employees in Germany and in the DACH market. And so you have a limited amount of prospects, but you have much more information available. And I really dived into podcasts, interviews, LinkedIn posts, and co for my kind of prospects, for my stakeholders. And this gave me the chance to have way more, how do we say it? You have way more ways to find your way into the account, right? You have way more stakeholders, you have way more whys, why you're actually reaching out. You have way more things you can talk about, and this is much easier for me than just trying to, I don't know, push into 100 SMB accounts per month or something like this.
And with that, did you, like if you have 10 people in one company that you can get in touch with, did you always personalize each message to each person in one company?
Yes, this is actually one thing. So maybe like one untold truth is I never write automated emails or something like this. I've never done something like this. I've never used how do you call it, like sequences and all this stuff. And it doesn't. So it's not important if it's SMB, mid-market, or enterprise. Also, right now as an account executive for SMB, every email, or the most calendar invites, which are not automated from tools like Julie Pipe or something, I write on my own, because I think this shows respect and you're actually into the topic, you're into the conversation. Because nowadays it's so easy for every seller to work with ChatGPT, to work with sequences, to automate things. And of course it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But when I compare the results, for example, at the moment, with colleagues or with colleagues from the wider market, I see that I am getting the most replies, open rates, and so on, because every thing from the subline, from the text, from the outreach is for myself and is meaningful research. So if I see something, for example, from your LinkedIn profile, that you're making your own film right now, or that you're acting in some kind of stuff, right? I will use one or two words in the kind of headline, and it's only for you, like it's only meant for Helena, right?
Mhm.
And this is how I try to tackle every sales task. And of course, in enterprise, you can really double down more on it because you have more time per account. But I also right now, as an AE for SMB, I'm also trying to enhance on it.
How much time do you usually spend per person, like on email or cold call? Do you like how much time do you?
Mhm. I think per person it's hard to so in the enterprise market you can think of, if we have 120 accounts and if the account mapping is kind of sorted, I think you have or can use an hour, two, three, four, for like an meaningful outreach for like a stakeholder group, I kind of call it. So,
Ah,
for
okay.
example, I had companies not only with 5, 10, or 20 possible stakeholders, but I think 50 or more.
Yeah.
Like in the masterclass we did, right? We've talked about Bosch, and I think they have 3 digits of HR stakeholders somehow, right?
Mhm.
And you can kind of contact them all and
Yeah.
try to find your way in. But I think for like one group, so individual contributor group, if we talk about HR, we have recruiting, talent acquisition, and so on.
Mm.
Then we have the team lead groups, we have head offs, VPs, and so on. You can use some hours to research. And in the SMB, I try to take my 30 to 60 minutes maybe per account in my book of business.
Mhm.
And yeah.
So maybe one untold truth about me is I definitely was one of those people who at some point got banned by companies because I reached out to everyone and I went a bit nuts on not personalizing it. And with that,
Hmm.
I sent like 1,000 emails a week, but and kind of
Wow.
somehow got in, but I definitely think that now when they see my name, they're like, oh, God, her again, you know? So I was just
Hmm.
curious to know how long you spent on one person because I'm like I could spend hours on one person. But if you like that would be my next question with the tactic. Like if you have a specific tactic, you can
Yeah.
be efficient in your outreach and yet still personalized. Like what are the tactics that you usually do other than changing your messaging to a specific persona?
Yeah. That's a good question, and I think it depends from company, of course, like a basic answer, right? But to make it kind of clear, like you have two ways to get in, right? You can use like a top-down approach or like a bottom-up approach, right?
Hmm.
So you can start with the like basic people involved in like whole processes. For example, if we stay in the HR industry, I've worked for over 2.5 years. I can call the person who's maybe linked in the job opening, right?
Hmm.
Some companies still use some phone numbers because they hope some applicants are like kind of trying to call them. So you can really start at the bottom, try to get some information.
Hmm.
In the SMB, of course, you also use them to kind of ask more deeper questions, to kind of pitch maybe something a bit, and to get some demos booked in with lower stakeholders.
Hmm.
What I did in the enterprise accounts is calling, so to say, lower stakeholders,
Hmm.
never pitching or something like this. So my goal is not to get like a direct demos, like direct meeting or something, but really just to get some information. And
Yeah.
then I call the team lead, the head of, and so on, and try to be very direct
Yeah.
and very concise about the problem, because I maybe have 30 to 60 seconds, because they're not that chatty and,
Mm.
because they're straight to the point. So I try to use very relevant information from articles, podcasts, stuff like this I've mentioned earlier, or trying to get internal social proof. When I say, hey, Helena, I've talked to, and here you can kind of name your colleague or something, and she mentioned that ABC, what's your opinion to that, or something like this, right? So you can start off your call, and it kind of feels that, okay, this guy or this girl kind of knows something internally and they've talked, so you trust, so you get more trust, right? And this is something I've used for the enterprise. So when we talk about bottom up, top down is a bit tough, because if you call the head off and he says, no, we have no budget right now, and this is like a truth told, the question is it really working to build a business case in the lower sections with team leads reporting into the head off? Because you can try to do so, but in the next team meeting, the team lead will say, hey, I've just had a meeting with company XYZ, and the head off will be a bit more pissed at you, I think, because he already or she said no to you. So it's always like you have to think of which way will I try to approach this company and account.
You touched a very interesting point, the efficiency point, the short, get to the point, no, how's the weather over there, just getting straight DACH version to the point. Like, what would you say are the differences in selling to a DACH enterprise compared to other like or other regions? What do people need to know about?
Yeah. It's actually crazy, because right now I'm working for HiBob. It's an international company. We have a lot of sites and a lot of countries we serve in. And when I talk to my colleagues in Amsterdam, so the Nordics, we talk with UK. So I've been 2 times in the UK office, very great people there. But the differences are so crazy because, for example, in the UK or US, from what I've heard, is that you often have not that much questions about feature things, about data security, about legal, about compliance. So they actually kind of want this look and feel like they need 1 or 2 demos with FAQs, and then they are open to make a decision, because they are also much more open to say, hey, well, we're open to switch systems and spend some K on this new tool or this new system or whatever. And when we compare it to DACH, it's really, of course, it really depends on the seller, right? Is it like a feature and function deal? Of course, the AE always have some fault in it, right? Because you don't can like really tie the operational problems to strategic and business relevant problems. But I think in the general, we have a much more complicated process. It can take weeks, months, quarters actually to get a yes or no. And like maybe we can say that the people are way more scared to make a decision in the DACH region than in UK, US, Nordics, and so on. May have many reasons, but this is what I'm seeing right now. It's kind of funny when you kind of realize it and talk to other ones about it, because you can adapt to it, right? But yeah, I think that like this is one of my experiences. What is yours?
I feel like with that, I think it was harder to book in a meeting. So from an SDR perspective, it was harder to book in a meeting. But when you had the meeting, it was more likely to go to the next stage. And the same with account executives. Once you actually have a case, it's more likely to close it rather than to like be ghosted or something. And I think I spoke to Vince about this the other day as well in another episode about like discovery. And I think he kind of summarized it quite nicely. You need to have the trust first. Like it's very hard to get the trust of a German speaking or like a DACH prospect. But once you have it, you have their commitment. And the commitment is something that you often don't get in different regions. And I think that is something that like you cannot underestimate. It is harder to get in. You have to be on point. You have to be relevant. You have to make it about them. But when you do that, and it is more work than just, doing the overall approach, But once you're in,
Yeah.
it's easier to stay in. That's what I found as well. And you just need to know the tactics. That's why we're doing the podcast. You just need to understand the tactics on how to get in. And you mentioned one thing is like, oh, there's fear as well, which I agree. I feel like I always joke with my friends. I'm like, so in Germany we'd have an insurance for that. In Germany, no, we'd have an insurance for that. Like there's no insurances anywhere else other than in Germany. And I think there is that risk aversion that we have,
Yeah.
that we also have in sales, that we have to overcome as sellers. So how do you get past that when you reach out to someone the first time?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. So it's kind of like what you've said in the beginning, like for SDRs reaching out, like what I've seen, like I've doing this stuff for like 2.5, roughly 3 years now. So I kind of jumped into sales with 19 as a working student and right now 22. So kind of 3 years. And it got bit more, so it got, so like kind of missing the word, but it is now a bit harder than 3 years ago. So you really see that through AI, through ChatGPT, through prospecting tools and so on, just costing $50 per license, it's much more easier for every startup with like 10 clients to actually go out and prospect.
Yeah.
So it's like sending emails is so easy. Like you find so many step-to-step guides on LinkedIn where people say like, hey, buy these 5 tools and your mails will come through the kind of wall, right, from the prospects. And I think this whole technology disruption allows companies to have a way more easier approach to prospect, to get more SDRs and so on. But I think what's changing now is, and you see this also from the job openings for new SDR roles and so on, that people are really trying to ask themselves, will I invest in a new SDR, just cold calling randomly people? And of course, it's a numbers game. We can play it through, right? We can kind of say that you should at least book 8 to 15 qualified meetings per month. I think this is definitely possible. And if they close for X, Y, Z percent in a SaaS business, 20, 22%, we will get X, Y, Z revenue. And I think the question will be, will we just invest in new SDR roles, or will there be other ways to get new customers? And I think to the second part of your question is it's not only about getting trust in the beginning, so really knowing the field you're calling in. For example, what I really loved to do in the SMB was understand the segments I'm calling. So of course you can just blindly call hospital, you can call logistics, you can call retail, I don't know. But once you're like 6 months in, 12 months in, I say to every SDR, try to get like your best kind of your best vehicle, right? So if you are the best people to talk to social hospital stuff and so on, try to make your own campaign, right? So what we've did actually with a colleague of mine, shout out to Moritz, is I was handling a bigger account in the enterprise market. For example, Helios Kliniken maybe as a very big healthcare company. And we talked to the main stakeholders, but due to the business being kind of split up, so you have like 120 Helios clinics all over Germany. This is something like SMB and mid-market again, right? So we can attack from both sides. And this gives you a lot of trust if you can. So really try this out, because we booked, I don't know, 20, 30 meetings per month with a strategy to really say, hey, we are talking right now to your main decision makers in the headquarters, and we're trying to plan a new project, XYZ. Are you open to chat like about the regional, about your location? Because it's often a bit more different, right? When you sell, for example, a regional product in Berlin versus Munich versus, because we sold jobs in these days, right? And you have more demographic and locational differences. And this is how we booked a lot of meetings, and the people have this internal trust, right?
Yeah.
So my step process would be try to get relevant external information, like as a first step. But the best way to get in and to keep this, to make the next steps and so on, is to basically get internal trust from other colleagues you've talked to, and then you call the decision maker. Or, for example, if you go into businesses which are split up and you talk to the headquarter and the
Yeah.
locations.
So just that I get that right, what you would do is you would go to a company like Google and say Google has, or Amazon, and Amazon makes the most sense. Yeah. You go to AWS and say, hey, I'm already talking to the HQ. Why don't we,
Yeah.
AWS, speak? Because it's just a part of Amazon, but it's not covered by
Yeah.
the stations that are. Okay. And they usually like, because they're like, okay, you're talking to the big boy, like, or girl, HQ
Yeah.
person. So that's why I'm taking our time.
Yeah, this is a game changer. So it's really like
No.
part of my hours of the week, we really had internal projects with my boss, with the whole team. We've looked at companies we have in our account management team. For
Yeah.
example, we had big names you're naming right now, right?
Yeah.
And like my job was then to use annual reports, statistics, and so organigrams, I think you call it in English, right? To really understand like how is the whole business unit split up.
Yeah.
And then I went to Miro, to the Miro board, draw something and said, hey, okay, we are talking to XYZ in the headquarter, but we have 10 more possible leads. And the possibility that they have their own budget, maybe we also already know it, is so high that like we had 70-80% conversion rate from calling into these structures with the contact from the headquarter.
Don't you want to
It's crazy.
start at our company, Jannis? Like, this is a game
It's
changer.
it's really crazy, and it really works. And it really works with enterprise companies because this is like just a little tip, but you can also look it up online, so it's not something internal. If you look at the retail market, logistic market, for example, Amazon also has different subsidiaries, and we
Yeah.
did the same approach there. Also Rewe, for example,
Yeah.
like it's a really tiny thing right now, but every Rewe store actually has their own, in Germany we say Kaufmann, so basically like a
Like a
mini
procurement.
CEO of a,
Yeah.
yeah. And basically you have like, I don't know how many stores, 3,000 in Germany, you have 3,000 leads because they can also spend their own money on advertisement, on job openings,
Yeah.
on, I don't know. And this is when you have time, the money and the people, you can really like map out all the big companies and call like crazy.
And you know that they do that individually and don't need HQ with it because you are already working with HQ and you know, okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's not known? Why do you think people don't do that already?
I don't know. Maybe every people is doing it. I'm not sure. But
I did not do that, Jannis.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, so what we did when I joined the enterprise team at one of my former companies, we really did like a analysis of the whole market, and we kind of created this tier list, right? So every account executive, of course, me also right now, we have our book of business and we're trying to kind of tier it. Maybe it's a bit gut feeling. This is like a whale. This is like a rabbit, blah, blah, blah. But if you really look at the numbers, and this is why I said enterprise is more easier for the prospecting part, right? Because I have so much information available, and I built like whole company decks for these companies with many KPIs like I found. And this is how you get this kind of bird view. And if you are like good in numbers, like I was, for example, if I had my 100, 150% or more, we could work on more strategic parts in the month with my boss and so on to kind of really understand about the structures, for example. And one last thing or one last tip I can also give you, which also worked for us, was to log into different LinkedIn accounts, for example, from your VP or from C-level and so on, and you can analyze second and third level connections of people they know and maybe clients you have. And like I did this manually, I think there's a tool outside for this, but I did it in Excel, very basic, and we found some connections and actually were able to make enterprise intros from one of our biggest clients to another very big client and got our meetings on this way. This is like the approach I would try to choose when we talk about top 5 accounts.
Yeah.
So really the biggest accounts, go this crazy extra mile and try to analyze 4 hours, some LinkedIn connections, and find your way through.
I cannot believe that you did all of this manually, though. Like that you did that on.
Yeah.
I'm a massive Excel person. I love Excel. But I cannot believe you did that on Excel.
Yeah, it's like really, I mean, you use LinkedIn, right? And you use this kind of second and third layer connections. You go down and you note every name who's like similar. Like I can't 100% remember how I did it because it's 1.5 years ago, but you really noted down some names on Excel and try to find them or find connections on LinkedIn then. And I was logged into some high internal LinkedIn accounts with way more connections. So of course, if you have 10,000 connections or more, you can use it. So you can use your own account for it. But this really helped a lot. And this is like one of the things I would also say to SDRs out there trying to move into enterprise roles or doing it already. Really try to go with extra mile, because if you have your top 5 accounts, it's very, so the possibility is very high is that also like C-level or something else, if you are like not a big company, is looking at these accounts. So if you have some progress to share, if you have some knowledge, some success stories, meetings booked, maybe like a first contract signed, a pilot contract or something, so a smaller one to kind of test it. This is also how you can shine and develop internally, because you are then the one, right, who brings in this account, and you can share the story internally to kind of how did we get there. And
Yeah. I wonder with that though, because I know some people or some companies are very strict on customer base and net new, right? So are they already some sort of customer? So I, as an account executive and as an SDR, was not allowed to sell into an existing customer, even if they were individualized, like even, would you
yeah.
say for a company that that's not great? Or would you say as a company, it's quite important to give the sellers the ownership over also existing accounts, but then customer success cannot upsell to them anymore, right? So where do you draw the best line?
Yeah, I mean, what we did in these days. So I give you like 2 examples. If we have, so we talk with the HQ. So my AEs on the HQ talking to them, but they didn't sign, they're in the process, maybe they're a bit slow. You have 2 ways. Either you get the agreement of the HQ to prospect the local stores or whatever to call, or you just do it on your own. So this is like the 2 thing, and the like all the accounts goes to the same account executive, of course. And if you have a client, of course, you have to be way more carefully, right? And what we did is really work extreme closely with the account management team. For example, we worked, so I was in the enterprise team with everybody involved, not so me, then the account executive, and then the account management people. Really being the point of contact for like a couple of years for them. And we had just some project task force, like we called it, to really have, okay, we asked, or I asked account management team, hey, where do you have these company structures? Maybe you also want to reach out to them, but you have no time, and this is where I'm here. So I kind of also worked for the account management
Yeah.
people. Of course, we kind of shifted the points to me that I got my commission and so on. But they worked on these accounts then on a long term. But I tried to find intros, to find open doors for them and book the meetings in with them. And this worked with a lot of accounts. Like I will not tell the names here, right? But it really worked with a lot of accounts. And this is what I would suggest for every enterprise team, really have this bird view sometimes.
Yeah.
Not only right for the bigger contracts, you kind of lose sometimes into the details and so on.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out and you say, hey, we have 50 enterprise companies, but maybe there are 100, 200 behind it, can we maybe get a green light from the headquarter? What we also did is making webinars with our point of contact from the
Yeah.
headquarter with this decentralized structure when they all were in the webinar and I called them afterwards. So we created our own marketing machine there. So created own warmer MQL somehow. And this is what you can do in enterprise because you have way more time, you have more budget maybe. And there's like a bigger CLV behind it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You touch on something so important, and that is something that I'm very passionate about as well. It's the different functions that generate revenue, and yet they are treated as individual enemies almost. It's marketing, sales, customer success, and obviously like pre-sales as well, absolute heroes out there. But like everyone who is part of revenue generation. And I find when I joined the company, no one had meetings with the marketing team from sales. When I'm just like, that was the first thing I did, call the marketing manager, and it was like, Martin, here's the thing. I need you. You need me. Let's get a weekly one-to-one in. Talk me through, like, what's the messaging that's working the best? Like, what doesn't work? What's
Yeah.
the next plan? Where's the next meeting? Do you see something that I can do? Like, he sent me things and say, hey, can you reach out to them before the event? Because obviously it helps for them to have good
Yeah.
MQLs. And the same for me to get good MQLs. So that, and the same with
Yeah.
customer success. I was talking to Kara in a different episode as well about customer success. Absolute queen of a woman. Amazing like strategies that she shared about customer success and how you can upsell and cross-sell. And one big topic is account executives. Work with your customer success manager. Customer success manager, work with your account executive. Like, it's so important. So it's the same for SDRs. When you prospect, game
Yeah.
freaking changer. I guess with that though, with enterprise, and you kind of cut it short in positioning relationships already, like creating trust through having relationships. How do you handle the long sales cycles? Because I think that's a stereotype of enterprise prospecting and enterprise selling. So you start and then you have the first meeting, and then they say, no, I actually, we are just doing the budgeting for this year, and we won't start the budgeting until December, and it's June now. It's super relevant right now, but maybe let's talk in December. And you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, how do you get past that and keep the momentum in that long sales cycle?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this was a big part for me and my colleague nowadays, where she handled this account executive part, and we worked extremely close on these accounts, on the meetings I've handed over, and I was also often part of it. And what I did is, like, I had my big list, right, of like dream brands, of like very important companies and so on, and I always, so we stick to it. And if the company says no, they will hear my voice 3 months later, or like even earlier.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to separate. Is it too pushy? Is it too much, and so on? But with what I've seen, like there was like a company. I think we booked 3 meetings in a year with the same company because they were always open to talk, but we kind of just scratched on the surface, right? So this is one thing to really stay at a company, don't give up too early, and really showcase that you believe in the business case. Because if the first no gives you like, oh man, I just don't, okay, goodbye, I have the new prospect coming in, it also showcases to the former prospect, maybe he or she wasn't really into it. So it's like a kind of a weird thing, right? So
Yeah.
really stay at the companies, try to do your best to like get them in again. I would say it's a very big thing, and of course, multi-threading also can help, right? If you have different stakeholders and maybe you're just trying to get into the account, and maybe you book a demo with like one kind of individual, kind of team lead level stakeholder. Of course, you can try to reach out to different departments, different stakeholders, and so on. There are like different theories out there, right? People are sometimes a bit cautious, a bit like they don't want to multi-thread like everybody,
Yeah.
like just you did and like said it, right? Because this also can, especially in DACH, be not the right decision. But if you like kind of make the ask to your current stakeholder, who should also be involved in the process, right? If we like both see the value, okay, maybe my whole team, and then you should be creative, right? And in the enterprise market, you can be a bit more creative because there often is more money behind it. You can say, hey, why don't we just maybe launch a quick workshop with your whole team that everybody's on board? Like there are some folks out there on LinkedIn, and they really talk a lot about value workshops and so on, which is I think crazy, because you can say, hey, we really want to understand the whole team's perspective, maybe even also other departments. Of course, this is a lot of trust there, right? Maybe should we invite them to our office? Should we do it online? Should we fight this case internally as a prospect, right? But if you have a really big fish, I think you can do these things to keep the momentum, as you said. Yes.
Why do you think it's not wise to do the multi-thread in DACH if you don't ask beforehand?
Um, I think this is the mentality, and like the thing is, because I'm kind of smiling because I also had some cases where I think that person said, "Hey, this is not." I'm missing one word right now, but this is not the way we want to work with
Like
kind of
professional
companies
or
like you and so on. Yes, yes, yes. So it's maybe a bit disrespectful, and of course you have to think about it on your own. For example, if somebody reaches out to you, Helena, and trying to
yeah,
build a case, trying to
yeah,
showcase value, trying to get meetings in and so on. Maybe this also happens, right?
yeah,
And but maybe you are forgetting them. You have other projects right now, like sales and DACH and so on. And then he or she tries to prospect your like your team colleague or like different part of your
yeah.
network. It can feel a bit misleading, and it can feel a bit I don't know, right,
Pushy.
like a bit weird,
Yeah,
yeah, pushy
yeah,
also, and it's not that trustworthy like in the first place. So this is why I'm a bit cautious in these cases. But of course, in the enterprise, if you have bigger companies, you have way more stakeholders. And one thing like I'm learning right now also again is if you, for example, sell to HR, why don't you reach out to other departments?
yeah,
Really try to understand, okay, maybe what are the problems from IT when we talk about the current software
yeah,
landscape? When you try to sell like sales software, right? Like I think there are one or two companies out there. I forgot the names, but they are really heavily trying to outreach to other seller on LinkedIn, account executives, SDRs, and so on, because everybody knows the game, right? You know, okay, they want to break into my company. Should I try to give an intro? Yes or no? And but what they are doing is actually trying to handle out some test accounts for this new software, saving you time, so the individual sees the value, right? Of course, in sales, this is like very a very good to go approach because we are all seller and we know the game and we can say, hey,
Yeah.
hey, okay, I personally see value, my whole team, I can make an intro, right? So this is also like one thing which is like meaningful multi-threading. But
Yeah.
this is a very tough topic from my perspective, there are a lot of opinions out there, a lot of theories. So this would be my take to it.
Yeah. I was just thinking with like adding someone, I guess the way to do it as well, because I agree with you, especially in enterprise, there are so many people involved. It actually makes the other person's life easier if I just put the person in CC, like I'm trying to make their life easier. But if you don't do it right, it comes across as like pushy, salesy, needy. I feel like it's like, oh wow, that person really needs to get an answer. So one way that I found works quite well is just give the control back to the prospect and say things like, "Hey, I appreciate, especially right now, super busy time. I assume that this department might be involved as well. Would it be okay for you if we put them in the thread? So you don't always have to be on alert. And that way, they
Nice.
might say no, but you give the control back to them, which was also something that I've noticed with the DACH prospects. They like usually want to be in control of the process. And with that, even though you control it, you give them the idea of this is your ground and this is my ground and let's play together. That I feel like work quite
Yeah,
well as well.
yeah.
And I just had to smile with you as well because I feel like sometimes people do something also with me when they reached out and they said, "Oh, your colleague told me that this might be interesting to you." And of course, being a good German, I am asking my colleague, "Oh, really? That's so cute of you that you thought of me with that person." The colleague said, I never told them anything. And I'm like, ooh,
That's bad.
even though the solution was great, I did not buy because I'm like, do not,
That's bad.
yeah, don't lie to me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
yeah,
yeah, so don't do that,
100%.
guys.
Like I would, yeah, absolutely. Like one thing you should like never do actually, right? Especially in sales, in life, and so on. So there are many people out there also on LinkedIn. It's like it went a bit crazy because people are just randomly cold calling, and of course putting in on LinkedIn, right? We have this kind of famous example like selling Sarah, right, from like Pareto USA thing. I don't know if you watched like her like Friday cold calling sessions and so on, which is very nice and funny to see. But there's some random like also German guys or like DACH guys, and they kind of try to give value on LinkedIn, but the one thing they actually show is how you lie, for example, to a secretary to get the number of the CEO or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
And this is like a very big red line for me,
yeah,
and like I've never did something like this because I think this is like not the right ethical way to work.
yeah,
And even if you get your number or like the response or the email address or something like this, the business relationship should not start like
yeah,
this. And I think every smart stakeholder out there, and the people are smart and
yeah,
smarter than 3 years ago because we all bought more software. We all know sales processes at the moment, right? We know that we get more discount at the end of the month, at the end
yeah.
of the quarter. So people are really knowing our system right now. This is what I'm seeing. So don't do this kind of stuff actually.
Yeah, yeah, very wise. That is very wise. With you now, just because I do want to touch upon the like prospecting and selling difference, you now got promoted to an account executive. Congratulations, well deserved. And what I found when I became an AE was I finally understood why SDRs are so important and why the discovery from the early stage is so important and the right prospecting, the right messaging, etc., etc. Something that I didn't realize
Yeah.
as an SDR. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this kind of transition still takes place, right? So I think it's like my fourth month. So I had my first official quarter, which went pretty well. But I think, from my experience, it's like you really understand like what you've said, not only the colleagues and so on, but I also really reflected my own work the whole years. Because sometimes as an SDR, it depends on the commission model you're working on, right? But sometimes we also maybe not always book the best qualified meetings in because we were under pressure and we needed this demo booked and so on in our calendars. But what I see right now, and right now it's for me that I get some inbounds and I prospect for myself. So I do like full sales AE. So I don't have my own SDR because we don't have this in the SMB sector for the smaller companies, which I also kind of like because it's my own destiny to fill my pipe. Right?
Yeah.
Of course, inbounds are nice and right. So we take them and we try to do the best. But if I have my dream accounts, my dream brands and so on, and I really see like the value, I really see the project, I know my way in there, right? So I think I would really say that you should disqualify and qualify very harsh on the accounts you want in your pipeline for this quarter. And as an SDR, you were like, damn, I finally booked this meeting. This is so great and so on. And you're really hyping, right? And this is all great and everything is right. But for the AE, the journey starts then kind of, right? So you have the discovery, you have to kind of argue the process and not show the product and so on, right? So like the typical things. But I think really, I think it's also good because you have your own destiny to make the decision which accounts do I want in my pipeline, right? And which will I accept for me that I'm working on these accounts now. And this is easier when you prospect yourself, when you are kind of relying on external sources. But of course, I'm with you on that SDRs are very important, kind of the backbone of the whole SaaS industry somehow, right? Because they getting in touch, they doing this kind of nitty gritty work sometimes. And sometimes days are also very tough, right? So I can remember when I mostly called CEOs out of the blue with the private mobile number. This was like very tough sometimes because like this is the highest person, the highest decision maker. They don't really want to talk to you in the most cases. So you really see that it's a hard job. And I think the best AEs are people who've been SDRs before before they kind of got promoted because they know the pain, they know the struggle, and
Yeah. I had to set a marker there. I was like, this is going to be the sentence, the golden sentence that I want everyone to understand. The best AEs have been SDRs. Like it's really
yeah,
learning the craft. And that also goes a bit back to what we said before with the different functions in revenue generation. SDRs and account executives are also functions in revenue generation, and they often don't work together. There's often a weird gap in between. The AE is the reason why my commission, like why I don't hit target because I don't put it on the next stage, and the AE is like I don't hit target because the SDR doesn't give me a good pipeline, etc., etc. Rather than working like that, like against each other, create a circle and work with each other. That's why we started the Sales in DACH Academy as well, a place where you can train the SDRs and you can train the AEs, and then you sit down together and you go through the best practices. Like your masterclass, Jannis, is genius. It's beautiful. I wish I would have had that as an SDR when I was still cold calling the CEOs while they were on holiday. Absolutely terrifying. I guess my last question to this though is, and I always ask my guests with that because I want to make sure that everyone who's listening to this podcast gets knows exactly what to do right away. Do you have like 3 exercises, tasks, strategies that someone out there can do today to improve their enterprise prospecting game?
I think in addition to what we've talked in this podcast, I think 3 areas can be kind of like the challenge is you have so much research you can do in the enterprise market. Like I said, right? You don't only have the like the homepage of the company, which is often in the SMB market, right? But you have like a lot of resources. So I think you should kind of condensate this whole research thing into very tiny pieces of information, for example, account mapping, stakeholder mapping, and so on, and do a lot in the funnel. So really get a lot of newspaper articles, LinkedIn podcasts, and so on, but really try to say, hey, okay, how can I condensate this in like one problem statement, like in one trigger, like in one hypothesis or something. So I think this is something everyone should do to get as much as information possible, but condensate them for you call when you call the head off. That you really have like one clear statement, one clear maybe hard question from a reliable source, in the best case internally and so on, like to get your way through. What helped me a lot, like in every situation, not only enterprise, SMB, like every day, also right now, is calling in times when nobody calls.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, so we have like the next sneak peek. So what worked for me really well is like I like to be early in the office, so 8-ish o'clock, right? A colleague of mine, which I mentioned also earlier, we were able to make 1-2 meetings up to 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning because we called between 8 and 9 a.m. The most sellers actually come into the office 9 a.m., maybe 8:45, and they kind of mingle and get the first espresso, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and you make your first maybe 5 to 10 relevant calls, people, so the prospects actually are already in the office. Maybe they're doing some admin work, and 9 a.m. is often the first team meeting session, right, internally. So they have time to kind of talk to you. And this also, so this works very well in the SMB. In the enterprise, it can also work. But what I also found out is that also calling kind of in the later hours. So we're talking about 5:30 to 6 p.m. Because if you want to reach a decision maker, let's say head off from a business, from a like enterprise business, it's very like the possibility is very high that he or she works until 7 p.m. or something like this, right? Because it's a very big responsibility in this position.
Yeah.
So he can answer your phone until at least, let's say, 6 p.m. So you should not call at night, right? But I think calling at these hours where like the most sales reps are going home, saying, oh, okay, this day was awful, let's go home, let's go. I don't know. If you like invest the last 30 minutes like an extra step, you can reach people who will not get reached so often because maybe they can only answer their phone at 6 p.m., for example. And of course, one thing, especially for enterprise, going the extra mile, I think is like a basic sentence. But what we've did is also unconventional outreach, meaning not only the classics like phone, mail, LinkedIn, blah, 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 like everybody's doing right now and everybody's kind of overwhelmed. Two very practical examples. We always do some Xmas cards, like handwritten cards. And what I like to do is to send my prospects really cards from me, like with my knowledge of the account. Maybe if we're in the process, this is what I just did some weeks ago, sending out a package to a prospect in my process to kind of get a yes or no in Q4. And it worked actually. So we were in very high intensity touch then right before Christmas because the package arrived, it was a good mood and so on. So like this kind of thing, handwritten postcards, not a pushy CTA, just kind of, hey, can we talk? Can I get a chance? Something like this, because they always appreciate your persistency in this case, because they see you really think like the extra mile and you're not calling 3 times a day, but trying to think of other possible ways. And one last comment to this one. Usually what I see at trade fairs, so events, right, happening, people are just staying in the company's corner, right? So we have like a sales and DACH corner, right? And we're standing there trying to, talking to some prospects, walking by. What you should do is actually plan the whole event for you. Maybe with marketing, you can also combine it again. But you can also say, hey, in the HR business, for example, many industry leaders, industry influencers, decision makers from my accounts were invited to the whole trade fairs and they had their own discussion on stage. So I can map my own plan and say, hey, at 10 a.m., the CPO or the CFO from company, I don't know, Bosch or something to say, Amazon, talks at stage B2. So I can try to kind of randomly talk to strangers at my booth, or I say, hey, guys, I will leave at this and this hours to try my luck, and then go up to the people before the event, afterwards, and so on. We've also have seen some success there to just catch them, and not only standing at your booth, for example.
I love that. It's I feel like your approach is it's very personalized. It's not scalable in the sense of send out loads of emails, but scalable in the sense of getting more quality faster. That's how I feel like you would have been. I imagine you being the person who did 10 calls the whole week, and 8 of them closed, whereas others would have done 10 calls a day and 2 of them they booked in by the end of the week. So that's so interesting. It's so nice and refreshing to see that you don't always have to have 100 software set up to book one meeting, but you can actually just be smart rather than work hard. I feel like that's a good.
Yeah, I think it's always
good final sentence.
I think it's and in addition maybe to that, I think it's always just do the basics very well. Because like the most reps, as you've said, they try to, oh my gosh, I saw this tool and I don't have to use Excel anymore. And I saw this LinkedIn automation stuff. 2 weeks later, they are getting permabanned, right? So things are happening, but I just tell, hey, just master your basics, right? So really do the research good. Of course, use, for example, ChatGPT for research examples, but then try to narrow it down to a very meaningful outreach. And this is something I think where we can do better. Everybody from us, everybody from the whole DACH market. And I think if we would kind of evolve our own sales processes, people would also tend to buy more because it's more trustworthy and it's more realness in the whole game.
That was a beautiful final sentence. Thank you so much, Jannis. I feel like I took so much away that I was just doing mental notes of tomorrow when I do my prospecting. This is what I'm going to do. And tomorrow, I need to set myself a reminder.
Nice.
I need to think about Jannis. Also, your masterclass was just a masterpiece. It was so nice to just sit there and just watch it and just listen to all of the expertise that you have, because you understood the basics, because you're doing it right. You evolve with your prospect as well, and that's beautiful. I am linking your masterclass into the notes as well, so everyone who wants to check out the masterclass, guys, click on the link. It is really, really worth it for anyone, even not just SDRs, account executives. We all need to fill our pipeline. So Jannis, thank you so much. If you guys have any questions to Jannis or to me, reach out to us. LinkedIn, Jannis. I'm just saying it because I assume you're always available for questions. I'm always available for questions.
Sure.
And it's always nice to connect all around the globe.
Yes, thank you so much, Hannah, for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for the next episode.